You're listening to The Grip, where we take hold of mindset and martial arts. Now, let's get started. Today's guest is the definition of discipline, growth, and grit. He's a red belt in Sanda and a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In 2023, he earned his spot on the Sanda world team, competing at 60 kilograms and finishing in the top 8 in the world. Fast forward to 2025, and he's now a national champion and once again a world team qualifier. Unfortunately, a tough LCL injury during his training camp kept him from competing at the World Championship in Brazil this past September. A setback that tested his resilience in every way. He's actively sharpening his craft and learning the art of coaching at United Martial Arts in Lubbock, Texas, a place where the culture, the training, and the people around him have been powerful enough to push his growth far beyond fighting. In fact, that positive influence has sparked a brand new mission outside the gym. Inspired by the mentors and teammates who shaped him, he's heading back to school with the goal of becoming a middle school or high school counselor, hoping to pay forward the same guidance and support that changed his life. Today, we dive into the journey behind the athlete, the coach, and the future counselor. Let's welcome to the show, Jaden Saucedo.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on, Jayden. Jayden is my very first guest that we have not had any prior connections or interactions leading up until today, besides, a few messages and emails back and forth in preparation for today's conversation. So I'm excited to officially meet you and hear your story, Jayden. Why don't you first start off by sharing your background and upbringing so the audience can get a better idea of who you are and so I know who the heck I'm talking to today.
Sounds good. I'm Jaden Saucedo. My upbringing, it had nothing to do with martial arts. I was a baseball player for 12 years. I started when I was 8 and played a couple years of college and then just kind of got burnt out of that. And whenever I was 19 and came home, I was working out, and just a dumb 19-year-old kid about to be 20. And then I watched a show on Amazon Prime. It's called Kingdom. It's about, I don't know if you've seen it or not.
I have seen it. I've actually seen it like twice. We ran through, my husband's obsessed with it.
Yeah. I saw that. I've went through it twice as well, and I saw that and I was like, man, I want to do that. So I started with a boxing gym and it wasn't a good fit for me. After seeing that show, I just really wanted to spar and I wanted to get in there. The first boxing gym I went to, it was 90 days to spar, and it was just kind of a weird setup there. So then I found United Martial Arts, and I went there, and I guess the rest is history. I fell in love. They do a sport called Sanda, and like mentioned, it's Chinese kickboxing, which is punching, kicking, and wrestling in the clinch. It's called Swai Jiao. Lots of trips and stuff like that. And in my head, I wanted to do Muay Thai. That sounded cooler. I'd never heard of Sanda, and then that all changed after my first sparring day. That I think everybody that's ever trained goes to their first sparring day, and it's kind of, there's levels to this. I can't just whatever pride or cockiness you had in your head going into it. Everybody's hit that point where it's like, I don't
humbled.
know. Yeah, humbled is a perfect word. I remember watching their first sparring day, I really thought that if I was to get in a street fight or something, I could handle myself. There's no way. And so I got more and more into Sanda and just fell in love with it. Really, it was my first love when it comes to training, and I guess the rest is history.
That's great. And so when you reached out to me too, Jayden, I had never even heard about Sanda. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
Right.
And so can you just start off by kind of explaining what makes it unique compared to other martial arts?
Compared to other martial arts, I love the rhythm of it. It's a very, you see Muay Thai and it's very stand still, power shots, power punches and stuff, depending on the type of fighter. And I think The only other martial art that I've seen that people are really hopping the whole time and having the condition to hop is Taekwondo. But this is a little different. I think the hardest part for me getting good at Sanda was learning the rhythm and having the body condition to keep up with high level countries like China, Iran, Russia, countries like that they do this for a living. It's like college football over there in those countries. You know, they get paid. I think Team Taiwan, whenever I competed in the 2023 World Championship, I think their silver medalist got $70,000 US dollars for medaling silver.
Wow.
So, yeah. And so I think that really is what sets it apart for me is the rhythm. And, you know, I can't really speak on any more martial arts because I don't know, but it's very government funded in other countries. So they're doing it for a living. They're doing it
Sure.
like, I guess college athletes would do it here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so break down, I know you said it kind of quickly, but break down the strikes that are legal within Sanda. And it's Sanda,
Right.
not Sanda. Sanda.
Sanda, I guess, however you want to.
Okay.
I think my coaches pronounce it. Let's see if I can do it. Sanda.
Oh, they
sometimes
emphasize the ending.
Yeah. And I think it's more of an emphasis on the D because sometimes they
Okay.
spell it, I think, with a capital D and an A or something like that.
Okay,
But-
well, apologies to, you know, the OG Sanda people if we pronounce it a million different ways throughout this episode, but
Yeah.
paying respects and we'll try and get past that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's start with the strikes then. So what strikes are, I guess, legal or part of the rule book?
Right. It's it goes off of a point system. So it's very
Okay.
point based. Inside kicks, anything below the hip but above the knee is 1 point. Torso kicks and head kicks are 2 points. And then punches to the face, if they get counted, are 1. So we have a judge in one corner on all 4 corners of the ring, and then we have a head judge that's right in the middle on a platform kind of. And everybody has 2 clickers and they're just trying to count points and stuff.
Dang.
And after each round it'll be red side winner, blue side winner. If red or blue wins 2 in a row, then there's no third round. But if it's 1 and 1, you'll go to a third to tie break it.
Okay, so you're knowing within the midst of competition what the score is and who's winning it. And it's not like waiting
Exactly.
till the end of 3 rounds. That's
Right,
interesting.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine the processing speed and attention that these judges have to keep track of it, because I was watching clips of just some of the competitions and they're fast paced, just like a typical
Mhm.
fight. And I'm sure depending on the artist or the competitor's style, that
Right.
would be a lot to keep up with. So most of the time there's only 2 judges though.
5 judges, 1 at each corner on a little
each
table,
corner. Okay.
and then 1 on a platform
Gotcha.
with the bell ringer and stuff like that.
Okay. So break down what those competitions are, how they're structured. So there could potentially go to 3 rounds. How
Right.
long is each round?
Each round is 2 minutes, but every time you get into a clinch, they stop the time. So I think we'll go to my first world championship fight. We were clinching a lot. And especially in the second round, we were clinching a lot because we were both kind of tired. I think I had a 4-minute and 48-second round, and it was supposed to be 2 minutes. But we clinched
Okay.
so much, they're constantly stopping the time.
Okay.
Clinching, if you're tired, it's better to just learn how to move in Sanda at least, because if you're getting tired and you're clinching, you're just prolonging the round even longer than it needs to be.
So when you clench, does that continue or does the ref ultimately have to break you up within
Right. 3 seconds. So you have
Okay.
3 seconds. Another big part of Sanda, which I should have added, which sets it apart from other martial arts, is the kick catching. So we have a lot of takedowns off of kicks. So you have one where you catch it on your forearm and scoop under, and then you have 3 seconds from this point. But if I switch to this and I try to trip them, and then I switch again, each time that 3 seconds starts over.
Okay.
But if you're just clinching, 1, 2, 3, referee will break it back to fighting.
Gotcha. Okay. And what I saw is gear and attire is different. So can
Right.
you break that down for me too?
Really, the way my coaches explain it is the chest gear is just so the judges, since it's so point based, the judges can hear the body kicks because it's this versus
Yeah.
So they can
Okay.
hear that, they count that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I guess it's protective to a point, but I think it's really just so they can hear that those points land.
Okay. Okay. And so you have that chest gear, kind of body gear, and then
Right.
you wear headgear
Yes.
as
Yes.
well.
And that's really the way my coaches explained it to me from the start was they just want action. They want constant action. So the headgear really prevents people from getting cut. Because if you get cut, then especially in a road tournament, you have 40 other fights that day you have to get through. So if somebody's getting cut each round or each fight, and you're having to stop and get the doctor out there, it takes forever. It's already a 5-day tournament without all that extra stuff.
Sure.
So for protection, but also just to keep the fights as smooth as possible going through.
Okay. And so then how heavy are your gloves? How many ounces?
For me, I fight in 8s. I think, so they go by kilograms. I think 70 kilograms and below fight in 8, 70 to 85 fight in 10s, and then anything above is 12.
Okay. So it's based on your weight class, how heavy your gloves are then. That's
Right.
interesting too. Okay. So then back to strikes. So you can do any punches and strikes. Are there elbows?
No elbows and no knees.
No elbows and knees. Okay.
Right.
And then as far as throws, can you kind of explain throws in Sanda in comparison to like maybe throws or takedowns in judo or wrestling?
Wrestling, so when it comes to Western wrestling, we can't touch our knee to the ground. If we touch our knee to the ground, that's 1 point of contact with the ground. That's 2 points deducted from us. When it comes to judo, I would say it's very similar to judo. We do a lot of judo takedowns. The difference maybe, and I guess I've been kind of confused on the difference between Shuaijiao and judo. I know there's a difference, but I think it's really pretty close to the same. You'll try one, maybe a hook on the foot. When you clinch, I try to hook your foot. When you defend that, then I'll try to throw a hip throw. Or you defend that, and then I'll go with a different throw. I would say that's pretty much it when it comes to wrestling and Sanda.
Okay. And so then when you get the throw or the takedown, it's back up. The ref stands you back up
Right.
and you guys restart. There's nothing else that goes
Yes.
on down on the ground, correct?
No, nothing,
Okay.
no groundwork.
Okay. And then it's just a point system within the time frame. There's never a time where the match would officially be done before time.
If there's a 12-point gap, if I have 12 points and my opponent has 24, but it has to be that same gap on all 5 judges, and then the fight's over.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. So is there a signaling system that they do if one corner judge has that 12 gap? Do they do something to like hand gesture to the rest of the crew like, hey, I'm getting this?
Yeah, I think they have like a stick with a white end piece or something. They have some kind of stick, and once they have a gap, they'll put it up until everybody has it.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. What else am I missing? I feel like I had a ton of questions just initially. I got to understand what the competition is like.
Right. I guess back to wrestling, and it's very detail oriented. So if somebody kicks on this side of me, if I'm in a close fight, I'm not going to catch it under my arm, because that's still 2 points for them. And let's say I take them down, I use all that energy in my wrestling to only get 1 point. So to get the most out of the points, and so he doesn't get a point, is I'll catch it on my forearm, because they won't count that. But if I catch it like this, they'll count that against me. And if I take them down and I'm still standing up, that's 2 for me. But if I take them down and I go and I fall on top of them, then it's 1, because it's 1 and 1, but it'll just cancel out. So it's just 1 point for me.
Sure. Super technical.
Very, very.
I mean, I think about, how quick the fight game is in general in various martial arts, and where your head has to be as far as it stylistically and competitively to go out there and, like dog it out and try and win.
Right.
I feel like you almost have to have another level head on the other side, paying attention to points.
Yeah.
And so was that a weird adjustment for you, or not really, because that's what you first started in?
Once I got good at it, and once I started competing at a world level, then it matters more. Just getting experience. I got I guess I got that, brain muscle memory or whatever in the fight just through fighting Sanda, little tournaments as I went. But whenever my very first fight, I would say that's a pretty good example of, trying to get the best of both worlds. And I remember we were just banging it out. I think his name was Gabriel Buftia. He was a professional MMA and boxer from Romania. And he was throwing bombs to the point where it forced me to have to bang with him a little bit. But listening to my corner, I can hear them say, you're winning, move around, just jab, just move around. Because why I don't need to take any more damage if I'm winning the match. Because that day it didn't fall where I would fight twice in a day, but I still have to fight the next day. So especially on the first match of the tournament, you don't want to go bang it out. That's more for semifinals and finals and stuff like that. So
strategy just going into a tournament in general. Okay.
Right.
So is that common when you are going to go and compete? It's always going to be tournament style most of the time?
Yeah, unless you're doing like a semi-pro match. They do them in Brazil, and if you do some more research, it's two totally different ways in my opinion, to fight Sanda. If you go look at a World Championship tournament, World Cup, it's very technical. It's very to the book. Because there's money on the line. All these countries are getting paid for this. But then they have, I think it's Kung Fu Extreme or something in Brazil. It's their own little promotion, and they bang it out. It's a whole different world of Sanda. And I would love to go do one of those because it's the best of both worlds. You get dudes in there that it doesn't seem like they're Sanda bases, but they're very experienced and they're good. And they take the Sanda rule set, but they kind of make it their own where they go hard. And it's very fun to watch.
And so when you first started competing, have you only competed within tournament style competitions?
Right. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu, I'm still tournament style. I've done two super fights in jiu-jitsu, but when it comes to Sanda or striking, the only time I ever drifted from Sanda was I was 2 years in. I did a kickboxing K1 fight in the cage, and that was the only time I've ever done not Sanda.
Okay. Very cool. And so within some of these tournaments, I mean, what's the minimum but also maximum number of fights that an individual could have?
So it depends on the weight class. 60 kilograms is a super stacked weight class. I think.
And for those that are not familiar with 60 kilograms, that's about 132 pounds?
Yeah, okay. 0.26. I think there was 26 that year. And so I beat Romania first. And then my second fight the next day, I fought Kyrgyzstan and I lost. Kyrgyzstan fought Hong Kong next. And then he lost to Hong Kong. And then Hong Kong fought one more. So he fought 4 fights to get gold. So I think it was 4 days.
Okay. And so doing a little bit of research, because I just even simply wanted to know how long Sanda has been around. And I saw that it originated in the 1920s. Who knows? I mean, I'm pulling this from Google. So clearly this is not a practice that is well known within the States. It's maybe it's growing, hopefully.
Trying.
And so what would you say some of the top countries are that are pretty well established in this? You've already listed a few, but if you were to say maybe like top 3 to 5, what would you say?
So China for sure, very technical. They have the best facilities, super technical country. And then I would say Iran. They bring the wrestling aspect. Each country has their own, unique things to add. And then third, I would say Russia. They're the best of both worlds. I think very technical and wrestling is really good. I think most of their guys are from Dagestan. 4 and 5, I would say, because you have Russia and then you have Kazakhstan. That's another big country. With the best of both worlds. Right.
You're right.
And then I feel like I'm missing a big one, but I would say probably somewhere like Turkey. What Turkey brings is heart, and they like to go. And they fit everything, all the Sanda rules into just going and seeing what happens. They'll catch, they'll do whatever they got to do to win. And I really respect Turkey as a competitor.
Cool. Okay, so you're a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and recently promoted to red belt. I saw that
2 days ago.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what timing? So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can you break down the belt progressions? Will you kind of just explain to our listeners in general? I don't even know if I've broken it down for those that might not be familiar. So in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we have white, blue, purple, brown, black, and then it eventually gets into the coral. Can you kind of explain the belt progression in Sanda?
It is white, yellow, green, blue, brown, red, and black. And we just recently started going off of kind of how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that's pretty set everywhere. From Brazil to America, anywhere you go to BJJ. We just recently got a belt system that's internationally known. So it follows a strict system, and that's what we're going by now.
Okay. Were you surprised? Did you have an inkling that you were going to be getting promoted?
No, it was a complete surprise. I didn't think I was going to get promoted this year. I thought that he was just going to let this one slide, and then maybe next year. But him and my coach and my girlfriend were in cahoots, and they planned it for me.
That's amazing. Can you kind of explain, like, how do you earn or how do you progress through your belts? Because, like if we were going to explain it from a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu standpoint, and feel free to chime in as I kind of explain this as well, but I know some gyms can be very attendance based, like put in your time, get in this frequency and then you're promoted. Some are more of skill level based, yes, it's going to take some time that you're not going to progress super fast, but
Right.
Depending on how much you're competing and how much you're gaining and growing and taking on the skill level and demonstrating that is going to be how you're going to progress through these belts. But in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I mean, it's not uncommon for it to take 10 plus years for people to even get close to getting their black belt. And so in Sanda, you've been clearly very active, which we're going to dive into that a little bit more. But you've been competing for over 4 years now. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And already at your red belt. And so you have one more to go till you're a black belt. And so tell me about that progression and how your coaches ultimately decide when somebody's ready to advance.
Right. So my coach, Ian Lee, and we can talk about him later. He's the man. But he has a system where you can get your yellow, green, blue belt pretty easily, just training, maybe competing here and there, maybe not even competing at all. But if you want to go into the higher belts, and I guess in a BJJ aspect, it would be compared to your purple belt. Your brown belt would be kind of like your purple belt. You have to compete internationally. Ultimately, you would never be able to get a black belt if you never did a world tournament. And you can also skip belts. I know that's not. I've never heard of anybody skipping a belt in BJJ, but here we do it. Not really even based off of skill necessarily. We had a woman this year that was, me and her were going to go fight. Shout out to Sydney Carr. We were set to go fight in Brazil. I got hurt, of course, but she still went. She fought in 75 kilograms. I think she had only been doing it a year at this point. And she went and fought the most famous Iranian woman, 75 kilograms in the world. She has 2 million followers on Instagram. She's famous in Iran. And, usually, especially the USA would not go 2 full rounds with her. But she went 2 full rounds, and she showed skill. She showed that she was listening to the game plan, and she showed all these abilities. So she was at yellow. She skipped green and went straight to blue because, it'd be unfair not to. She fought the best woman in Iran and lasted 2 rounds. So she deserves that skip,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much how it works.
Very cool. That's helpful. And so you said your girlfriend, does she train too?
She's been doing it 11 years longer than me. She's a black belt already.
Dang! That's awesome. Okay. Did you guys meet in the gym then?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We met 4 years ago. Yeah.
Awesome. And recently engaged?
Yes, we just got engaged October 2nd, so very recently. So
congratulations.
Trying to get that started. Thank you.
In the depths of wedding planning now?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's a headache sometimes, but we're grateful for it.
Yes, absolutely. And so does she compete?
She, not recently, but she was actually on the same world team that I was on in 2023. And so we went through that whole camp and weight cut together, and she medaled. She had a bye the first round. She fought Chinese Taipei, Taiwan, second round, and beat her, and then lost to Italy in the semis, I think, one of those. And she got bronze, which is, before 2023, it was pretty unheard of a USA team medaling. We didn't have too many, and that year we had 3. So
Wow.
Yeah, and she was one of them.
That's great. What is your fiance's name?
Audrey Meeks.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's great. I'm sure such a big impact as far as being with somebody that understands and
Yeah.
shares the same passion for martial arts is huge, as you know,
Right.
let alone when both of you guys are competitors. Is there any times where you guys butt heads?
I'm trying to think back. There was not too many. People were surprised when they hear that. There wasn't too many, but I think it was just because, man, that was a pretty bad weight cut for both of us. So I think we would go to training, go home, and it just felt like we were just walking through life and barely knowing where we were. Just trying to get to training, just trying to cut the weight, and just that's all we were focused on. So
yeah. What do you walk around at, Jayden?
I walk around about 155, so I
Okay.
cut down to 132. But,
how is weight cut still for you? Do you feel like you have gotten it more locked in now, or is it pretty brutal every time?
That was my last brutal weight cut. Shout out to the MMA doc, Coach Richard Mack, if you want to check him out on Instagram. I got with him for my strength and conditioning, and he totally changed the way I do everything when it comes to weight cut and trimming down my body fat. Now I do it in safer ways. I check in with him every week, and we do it on his app. And because that weight cut in 2023, I wasn't supposed to go. I wasn't the national champion that year. Was silver. I medaled silver nationally that year. The guy that medaled gold, Spencer Ming. Shout out to Spencer Ming. He just got his bronze medal in Brazil this year, but he had gotten hurt, and so they asked me if I wanted to step in. At 3 months, I was 182 pounds at that point. I went a little crazy after the nationals weight cut. So I had to cut, I don't know how many pounds that is. So I found out 3 months out, and I was immediately started cutting the weight. And the thing with Sanda at a world level is you have to weigh in every day. And it's an initial weigh in, and then every day you fight. So I was cutting, so the initial weigh in and then 2 fights. So I weighed in 3 times. I was cutting 11 pounds a night, and all night I was cutting weight. And then when I fought Romania, I was 4th fight of the day, and I was running around the convention. This was in Fort Worth. I was running around the convention center trying to cut a weight because I think I was like 0.1 over, and I could not get that weight off. And then, I was praying, and then I had to pee. I ran to the bathroom and I peed and I made weight. And I got done there. I sat down. They put electrolytes, food in front of me, and I chugged my electrolytes, or I didn't chug it, but, sipped on it. I wasn't very hungry after that. And then, so I make weight. 35 minutes later, I'm next up. So I cut, I think that night I'd cut 11 and a half pounds. So weigh in 30 minutes later, I'm already getting ready to go out there. And surprisingly, it didn't affect me too much.
That's what I was going to say. So is that like pretty normal? I mean, everybody around you is kind of following that same protocol where, because when you're rehydrating and, not in this cutting phase, your body's already naturally going to gain back some of those pounds. So I'm sure that's like a roller coaster having to experience that over a number of days. Because again, for those that are not super familiar with some of the other weight cutting processes, so like a UFC fighter is going to cut down, and then they might have weigh-ins on a Friday, but then they have that night and the rest of the day to rehydrate, get in their nutrition, and they're ultimately going to fight that next Saturday with no need to weigh in again. Where I don't know actually any other sport that probably, well, maybe besides BJJ tournaments, you have to do the same thing. Right. Can you think of it, is judo like that too? Where you have to weigh in maybe a couple times, like right before you go out, I guess, or the day of.
I've never heard. Yeah, okay. I've never heard anything other than IBJJF. Like you have to weigh in your gi right before you step on the mat and stuff. Yeah, that's the only time.
Dang. So let's go back, because you started training at 20 years old?
20.
Okay. How long were you training and just kind of getting a feel for martial arts before you decided I'm ready to compete? I'm itching. I want to get out there.
Yeah.
And what was that competition experience like? Because did you go right into Sanda? Because you did Sanda for 2 years before you even dove into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, correct?
Right.
Okay.
At first, it was a hobby, but I'm the kind of person that I'm not gonna do it for a hobby. I'm gonna want to get in the shit as soon as I can. For a while, it was just once or twice a week. I was in a bad relationship, pretty toxic relationships. I didn't feel comfortable, making friends at the gym, just never be able to engage with them in the right way. I ended up breaking that off, and then I just dove right into it head first, and immediately just fell in love with it. That's really when I fell in love with it and decided, I want to compete, that was January. My first competition was that coming July. And they were just we were just getting over COVID-19. So this was the first Sanda tournament since the 2019 Shanghai World Championship. So this was in Phoenix. So I drove all the way to Phoenix. My first few fights, I fought at 70 kilograms, 154. So doing the weight cut, horrible. It makes me cringe that I was cutting that much weight. I was cutting, well, in my head, it was a lot. It was like 6 pounds, cutting down the water weight on the way to Phoenix. I wasn't drinking or eating anything on the way to Phoenix, which is from where I'm at. It's 12 hours. And I get there, I make the weight, and we went to Golden Corral after. It's a perfect post weigh-in meal. Made us all feel like shit. So the next day I go, we fight, and I just freeze. And I remember they said go, and I think it was the other guy's first fight too, but I don't know. I guess he was more experienced, but I remember just being there. I'm like, we're trying to hurt each other. And next thing I know, while all I was processing what was happening, boom, boom, boom. And it was crazy. I was throwing punches like this because I was freaking out. I had an adrenaline dump. And then I got that 12-point gap I think the fight lasted 31 seconds. And I remember walking off the lei tai. I remember my coaches, Coach Ian Lee and Coach Bruce Wang, they're in my corner. And I remember they're like, you should have done this. And I was like, I couldn't hear you. And they just laughed. It was my first fight. It was comical to them, and it was I can see that as very, very funny being in the corner and seeing that. And I remember walking off the lei tai and because that's what it's called. The ring's called the lei tai.
Okay.
I forgot to mention that.
Which, tell me about that a little bit. Sorry, before you keep going. So the ring, it's a mat, right? There, you said 4 corners, so it must be square. And that's pretty much it. I mean, how big would you explain? Do you know the size generally?
I don't know the exact measurements. I would say it's pretty spot on to any other ring you would fight in. Maybe even, yeah, pretty spot on. And it's raised.
Like potentially like a boxing ring.
Yeah,
like as big
I would
as
say
that.
it's very similar to a boxing ring.
Okay.
Except no ropes. It's raised off on a platform with cushion around it. And I forgot to add this into the rule set. So if you push somebody off and you stay on, that's 2 points and that's 1 push out. If you do it again, that's 2 push outs. That's the end of the round, no matter what time you're at.
Okay.
So you could have an easy round if you can get them off twice. And I think that's based off of, I know it was originally a military martial art to teach the military in China. I think the thinking behind that was they would do it on a super raised platform, and if you got pushed off, you die. You fall to your death. So I think that's the thinking behind it.
Okay. So casual, no big deal.
Right. Yeah.
Dang, but that shows the importance of defensively being able to cut angles.
Right.
And what you kind of described as consistently being on your toes, very jumpy. Agility is probably key within these competitions, of being able to have quick movements to evade and ultimately not get pushed off this platform.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
So anyways, back to, you just lost, you step off.
Oh, yeah. And I remember being like, I'm never doing this shit again. Like, that was fucking horrible. I'm embarrassed. My ego's destroyed. I just went through a whole fight camp. In a fight camp, there's highs and there's lows. And I went through all that shit to just get beat up bad and embarrassed. And I drove 12 hours for this. And then next thing you know, like, I'm doing it again and again and again.
Are most of these tournaments, so it's like you lose once, you're out, kind of single elimination?
Right. But they might find an exhibition. You could probably go and ask the judges or the coordinators that you would like an exhibition. They can find you one. But,
okay. Okay, so you have this, you're down in the dumps, you're talking with your coaches, they're kind of breaking down maybe what happened.
Hmm.
When do you have that mental shift to decide you want to give it another go?
I think it was just so there's a couple weeks after that fight that I showed up twice a week, maybe. I think there's like a whole week I didn't show up. It was hard for me to bring myself to go back and do it. And then I just had one good practice. I had a breakthrough with my boxing, and then it just kind of reminded me why I wanted to do this. Like, I love it. I love it. And then, I feel like Coach Lee brainwashed me to a point that in the times that I needed it most, he made me feel better than I was. And he gave me the praise when I needed the praise. And I think that that's just kind of what happened. He made me feel like, well, I am kind of good at this. Maybe I'll try this again.
And clearly you were a competitor before you got into martial arts. And so
Mhm.
had a level of mindset of what wins feel like, what losses feel like. What correlation or what skill set do you feel like really translated over from baseball to martial arts?
The only thing that translated was just the work ethic I had. In baseball, I was always the last one hitting. I'll hit off the tee for hours and hours, just going and picking them up back for hours and hours, just trying to perfect my craft. The thing was, I wasn't very athletic, and I wasn't as built as strong as the other guys, and I just couldn't compete with them. When it comes to college and high school is totally different when the coaches make their paycheck off of putting the best dudes in there. So I didn't get much playing time and stuff just because I just wasn't as big and strong and athletic. And the big difference between martial arts and baseball was you didn't have to be athletic when it came to martial arts. If you have heart and you have some grit and you're willing to do things that most people would be scared of, everything else will fall into place after that. And when I noticed that, that's when I really fell in love with training and fighting and stuff, because I could take what I thought was going to work for me in baseball and do it in fighting and Sanda, and it worked out for me. I saw the benefits of what I was putting in, whereas in baseball I really didn't.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to hear your perspective in what you perceive as athletic and not athletic.
Right.
Because in my mind, I'm like, you're probably pretty athletic. But so you must have like a high threshold of what you consider to be, top athlete or fall under this category athleticism. Because to play
Right.
baseball or really probably any level of physical activity, there's always going to be some level of athleticism. The shift of what that athleticism looks like and the criteria that's needed to do that specific task is probably what's changed. But I could probably
Right.
argue with you
Right.
that I'm sure you are athletic to some degree to be
Yeah.
competing at the world level in Sanda.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. My
let's
mom always
clarify, let's
reminds me
be
of that
real
too.
on that.
Right. Yeah, my mom was
Yeah.
always like, "Oh, I wouldn't say you're not athletic. I mean, look what you did in
Right.
baseball for so many years." And I have to think about that for too and bring myself back. I'm not just some punch this way, and I have some athletic ability.
Right. And, because there is a lot that goes into being an athletic individual. And as we know, as far as martial arts standpoint, it is a lot about how much can you gain from like timing. You do have to have this level of strength, agility. And so there's a lot that goes into it. And so I'm sure you're just
Right.
continuing to build on your athleticism.
Yeah.
So, but for those out there that don't feel like they're super athletic, anybody can get into some level of martial arts. So go at them. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so explain to me. So, after a couple years of competing and building up your Sanda experience, you eventually decided to dive into the dark side of BJJ.
Mhm.
So, how was it blending those two arts? Because quite a difference. And so, what
Right.
inspired you in the first place, and how has that been practicing both of them?
Really, I started doing BJJ just to compete because I had a big problem of just freaking out whenever I would get into the ring and having adrenaline dumps and not knowing. If you asked me my name, I probably wouldn't even be able to tell you my name. I'm freaking out so much. And so I just started doing BJJ to just compete and compete and compete and just get in front of people, in front of another human being trying to hurt me or whatever, and learning to be calm.
Mm.
I really liked it. It came a little easier to me just because I had fought and I have gotten beaten up before, head kicked and all that stuff, like knocked out. So BJJ, not saying BJJ is easy. I'm not good. I'm not very good at it. I just have some heart. But in my head, it was easier to latch onto just because I wasn't getting punched and kicked.
Mm-hmm.
But the hard part for me is actually submitting somebody. I don't have, I'm still trying to get that up to par, but blending the two has really helped me in the sense of like, uh, there's a lot of pressure I put on myself with Sanda and not so much on BJJ. So I can go and do BJJ and just still train, but have a calm mind, and I can, fail gracefully and not beat myself up too much about it.
Yeah, that's so interesting to see. Well, it ultimately sounds like that's been a huge thing just to build your mental strength then.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
confidence, and just being able to handle a different level of adversity and know that you're going to make it out on the other end, whether you win, lose, have a tough match, have a super easy match. Either way, you're just kind of
Right.
in it to grow. So that's really cool. I could see how they complement each other. And from a competition standpoint, the opportunities of BJJ competitions and tournaments are probably tenfold compared to Sanda tournaments. And I don't know, again, maybe it's just because I'm not in the world of Sanda. What is it like to find tournaments within the state of Texas, let alone within the country? I mean, are there more opportunities now, or what's that like?
Yeah. And that's another reason I have to compete jiu-jitsu a lot, is just because there's not a whole lot of opportunities. There's a world championship one year, and it's every other year. So then the next year will be the Pan American Games.
Okay.
So there's a trial for each. They call it team trials. So there's for those big tournaments, there's one trial to make the team, and then the actual the international fight. And then really I think there's one more in Phoenix. We have some people that work. It's called the USAWKF, United States of America Wushu Kung Fu Federation. We have some people that work with the USAWKF in Phoenix. So they put on a Phoenix Wushu Nationals every year. It's not the USAWKF, it's their own little thing, but to promote Sanda, they put that on every year. So you can get maybe 3 a year if you can make all those 3. So that's why I have to compete. If I can, but this next year I plan on trying to do some more kickboxing in the cage for experience, more jiu-jitsu as much as I can, just to get ready for those international tournaments and trials.
Okay. So then that's just wild to me that you maybe will get, a couple fights in Sanda a year. And then I think about these other countries who maybe they're doing this, I'm assuming, year round and getting like extensive exposure to competitions and tournaments. And so, wow. Yeah, because that was kind of my next question is I was curious on when you competed in 2023 to winning in 2025, kind of what happened within that time frame. But let's first talk about, your initial preparation for the 2023 World Championships, what that weight cut looked like, what training looked like. And did you get invited, or that was because you won? You got silver at nationals and then had to fill in for, okay, the individual, and he got hurt?
Yeah, he had gotten hurt 3 months out. And then, so I medaled silver, so I'm the, B team or whatever. Word got out that he got hurt. So the board members had to have a board meeting. So are we going to send 4, or do we have a guy to fill that spot? They said my name. I think they were a little iffy about it because I was so new at that point. But they decided to, give me a chance.
How early of a notice did you get?
3 months exactly. It was exactly 3 months.
Okay.
My coach told me, so I immediately started cutting the weight. It was not a pretty weight cut. When you're cutting weight and it's a big weight cut in front of you, you really got to be careful not to freak out. Builds cortisol, holds on to weight, and makes you do stupid things. And, and I was doing a lot of stupid things, like jump roping with a sauna suit on every single day, not eating all day, just pretty much doing a water cut every single day. That I feel like I still have things my body's paying for now from that weight cut because I did it so, stupid. I didn't have Coach Richard Mack in my ear telling me all these things. I didn't even know he existed. So I was doing it all on my own, counting my calories or whatever, based off of, Google searches and stuff. It was a very hard weight cut, a hard camp, a very intense camp. The guy's spot I took, his older brother, Vincent Ming, he was fighting at 65 kilograms. He lives in Ohio. He came here for 6 weeks and he lived in the gym because he was on the team too. And me, Vincent, and then one of my coaches, Bruce Wang, this was his last tournament. He medaled silver that year. Highest medalist in the USA, and then my fiance Audrey. We just stuck together for that 6-week camp, and we just went balls to the wall. We were doing intense sparring rounds, and everything from start to finish of that camp was super intense. And it all paid off for sure. But it was very mentally taxing just for the fact that I had to work full time and do this. So to be able to get to the gym on time, I had to be leaving my house. I was doing route work, so I would drive around and deliver vapes. I was delivering vapes at the time, and I had a route that took me a good while. So I would have to make sure I could get to training. I would have to leave my house at 3:30 in the morning to get to the warehouse by 3:45 and get my route started. So I have enough time to get through it, get home, rest for a second, and then go train for the next 4 hours. And
what year was this?
That was 2023.
This is like probably right when vaping was at its peak too.
Yeah.
Sorry, you just said a vape deliver, and I'm over here thinking like, man, that went through like a wave for a couple of years where everybody in Lubbock, and let alone around the country, were vaping. So did you vape at that time too?
No, I didn't. I just quit.
Okay.
And it's so hard. It was so hard to have a trunk full of vapes, brand new vapes that every time you take them out and you make the order, you can smell them. And I was like, man.
And they smell.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially in packs we would have big boxes and just packed in, and the whole car smells like vapes.
Dang.
So I had to just keep reminding myself, these dudes from Russia, China, Iran, they're not vaping right now. They're training. So I gotta,
That's funny. Sorry. Anyways, keep going. Because as soon as you said that, I was like, man, what a job for one. And having to be on the grind. I think of any kind of job where you're having to do routes, whether it's delivery or whatever it may be. There takes a lot of planning, but it can just take it out of you too. And so, when you're having to start at some of these warehouses super, super early in the morning, it's a grind. So were you doing that like 5 days a week?
Yeah, 5 days a week.
Okay.
I think every other week we could work 4 days, so I would take advantage of that. And
sure.
But yeah, 4 to 5 days a week.
Okay. And then in the afternoons is when you were getting off, you were just going straight to the gym and grinding it out for a few hours, I'm assuming then.
Yeah, I would get off around 3, go home, shower, eat something real quick. Or actually, during that weight cut, I wasn't eating anything. So I would have a Nature Valley bar in the morning and then a rice cake before I trained. And then I would get off at 3, try to relax for a second. I was at the gym by 4 after I had my no sodium rice cakes because I thought 6 weeks out I needed to eat stuff with no sodium for some reason. Then I would go at 4, jump rope, cut the weight, get done there, right into training session for the next 3 hours.
Dang. And so where was the World Championship in 2023?
That was in Fort Worth, Texas. It was the first time, because usually it's out of the country. There was the first time in 26 years that the World Championship has been in the United States. And luckily it was just right in our backyard.
Yeah. That's great.
It was a 4-hour drive from Lubbock to Fort Worth, so it was very convenient.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Because I think of in your situation where you maybe haven't been competing for that long, you get kind of a short notice of being accepted into the tournament, and then having to have that mental shift of traveling across the world to go and compete would have been an amazing opportunity.
Right.
But kind of nice from the familiarity and not having to change time zones or anything. So that's nice that went in your favor.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been going to Fort Worth since I was itty bitty, so it wasn't like I got somewhere and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so different here. It's just something I've seen before.
Sure. No like culture shock or anything like that.
Right.
Cool. And so you ultimately get to the tournament, you cut the weight, and you were ranked top 8 in the world that year. Can you tell us just what it meant to step into that stage for the first time and walk us through each of the fights that you had?
Yeah. In my head, I was proving something to myself and to everybody. And, I had a conversation with Coach Lee one night. He was leaving, he was walking out of the door, and I was still there training a little bit. And I was like, Coach, I feel like people think I'm going to go out there and die. And he was like, they do, but show them different. And then walked out, and that stuck with me so hard. And I feel like that was the part of the camp. I think we were 8 weeks out there. It was still a ways away, where it was like, why not me? Why can't I go and do this? Why can't I make history? And it was a trip getting there, even though it wasn't out of the country. When you go to the weigh-ins and you're walking around the hotels and you're just around the venue and stuff, you see people talking different languages. They're big. You can just tell they're fighters, and they just look like they've been there so many times before. And I feel like a wide-eyed, little kid. That's where my fiance really came in. She was nervous too, but she had been there before. She'd done Junior Worlds, University Games, which is another world tournament, and she's a Pan American gold medalist. So she'd been there before. So that's when her calmness started kind of rubbing off on me and making me calm down a little bit. So we have team practices, and everybody's screaming. I remember we were hitting mitts, and Team Vietnam was watching us. And Coach Corey Johnson, he was the head coach for the USA team that year. He's also my BJJ, and he's been doing Sanda for 20 something years, and he's a BJJ black belt. He does the BJJ at our gym now. He told us, I don't care if you're nervous, scream as loud as you can and show everybody around here that, you belong, that you know what you're doing, that you've been here before. I was hitting mitts and I was screaming, and the whole Vietnam team was kind of just watching me because I was overcompensating. I was faking it till I make it. I was terrified, but, in their head, they're watching me like, who is this guy? Because, I wasn't bad, and that was a cool experience too. Later that day, they did the draws for who's fighting who. And so Corey had to leave early, and he went to go draw lots or whatever. And
can you explain that process? So I guess I just kind of assumed you knew going into the tournament who your first matchup is going to be. So you don't know until you guys are all there, and then you do some sort of drawing system.
Yeah. So it's a coaches meeting.
Okay.
And so the head coaches of each country will go, and they'll draw names further. So 60 kilograms is up. So whatever he has a fighter in. So say 60 kilograms is up, then he'll draw for me, I guess. I think they draw to see who draws first to pick the bracket. So they already have it set for the brackets and stuff.
Okay.
And then they'll call in USA 60 kilograms. They'll draw, and then I really don't necessarily know how that works, but that's how you figure out who you're fighting.
Oh,
so
interesting.
I drew Romania first. Bruce drew Egypt. And then there's Livingston McKenzie. He was also on the team. He's a black belt under Coach Lee too, as well as Bruce and Corey and Audrey. He drew Egypt as well. And then Vincent drew the Philippines, which I wanted to add from my earlier, those two countries that I couldn't think of. They're definitely Vietnam and the Philippines.
Okay.
Those in the top 5. But he drew the Philippines. Audrey drew India, but they were having trouble getting into the United States. They're at the embassy. So they didn't make it in time for the initial weigh-in. So Audrey went out there, and she got her hand raised with nobody there, just out of, just the cordiality of it, I guess.
Sure.
And I think that was it. Yeah. And Bruce Livingston didn't fight because they're bigger weight classes. So me and Audrey fought. She was supposed to fight the first day. I fought the first day, fight 4. And so, like I said, I was cutting weight all night to make weight for that. I made weight once, cut weight all night. I think it was from 8 p.m. and I was on and off cutting weight till right before I weighed in. And then I remember going to weigh in. I was the last one, and the Romania coaches were sitting there, and they're laughing at me as I was walking out after I just made weight. They're laughing at me. Their guy was already eating and drinking, and I went out there. So they say, USA, come gear up. So I geared up, and I'm warming up with Corey. He's holding mitts for me. So then they call you to the door. So you go to the door, and you're next to your opponent the whole time. And then you move from spot to spot, from chair to chair, right until you're about to go. And I remember thinking, why not me? That was always in my head throughout that whole process. And then I just felt a calmness over me. I don't know if it was, I prayed, obviously. I think it was like God was telling me, like, I had no doubt in my mind I was going to win. There's something, I've never felt that before. I just knew it. And I went out there, And I remember we started going, and then I was thinking to myself, I'm really doing this. I took him down a couple of times, and I got, I'm doing this for real. Like, I'm actually out here in front and on the world stage putting on a good performance.
Mm-hmm.
Once I thought that, after that, it was like like I was on mushrooms or something. I don't know, like watching myself from above. I had no control of my body. It was just instinct. And it was just what I did the whole time during the camp. And it was awesome. It was really awesome.
Two things that I've noticed, or a few things that I'm noticing from what you just said, the importance of no matter how big is just how important the people that you have around you. And so it sounds like the confidence of a couple of your coaches, obviously your girlfriend at the time who was also competing and trying to probably get her head and body straight, but having that really tight knit inner circle that you trust in is essential. The confidence in yourself, because I'm sure just even the amount of growth that you had from the very first competition where you're like, what the heck am I doing? Right. And having complete adrenaline dump to now having this inner belief of, okay, I got this, I'm here, I'm going to do it. And then instinct. And so I do think it's really fascinating hearing from a lot of martial artists that do compete. And they kind of talk about that as like, once you're in the moment, you almost just trust on that instinct. And I think that does come down to the preparation ahead of time, right? And so to get that instinct, you need to have a number of reps and seeing multiple, things and just getting that ultimately that experience. And so that sounds like an awesome first experience. So did you guys go 2 rounds and you were done, or did you have to go to the third round?
It was 2 rounds and done.
Nice.
Yeah. Thank
That's
God.
great.
I was pretty gassed out at that point.
They stopped laughing then, huh?
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Good. And so you won that first one. And so then do you get a break the rest of that day?
Yes. The rest of that day, I got to chill, and we had Vincent fight, and that was it for the rest of the day. So, just rally around Vincent, getting ready and watch his fight. And then the rest was just get off your feet and get ready to cut weight again that night.
Okay. And then you competed again the next day against Kyrgyzstan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Talk me through that.
So his name's Avazbek Amenbekov. I looked him up prior to fighting, and I found out. So there's Asian games, which sometimes could mean more money to those countries than a world championship. So sometimes it's a little bit more competitive fight because it's just the best countries in the world competing. And he was a bronze medalist for Asian Games, which was 2 months before that tournament. So he's been doing it since I was 11, before fighting and training was even a thought to me.
Yeah.
He was doing fighting at a world level then, and medaling and doing all that. So it was kind of holy crap, I'm about to fight this guy. And I looked at his Instagram. He had 44,000 followers, and I'm like, holy crap. And then it was just kind of that fight was so bizarre because I was taking a nap when they told me to get ready, because I don't know if they had a schedule, they're just good on their schedule, but we did not think I was going to fight that soon that day. So I'm taking a nap, and then all we hear is USA 60 kilograms, get ready, come to the front table. And so we had to hurry up and rush that warm-up session, and I just was out of it. Like I was in a weird headspace, super weird headspace to go into a fight, especially a fight against an Eastern European dude that's been doing it for more than half your life,
Sure.
And so I remember it was me, Corey, and Coach Lee. They're in my corner, so they're walking with me through each of the chairs and leading up to getting in the ring. And I remember Corey being like, "You're making me nervous. Like, you look like, did you smoke weed or something before this?" And I was like, "No, I just woke up." Like, I'm trying. He's like, "Well, move around and scream a little bit. Like, you're making me nervous. You're about to go fight this dude." And that kind of made me laugh, loosen up a little bit. And then I started, I kind of got the nerves out, screaming and jumping up and down or whatever. So we get onto the lei tai, and there's a technical difficulty. So it's me and Avazbek. We're facing each other, and the referee was saying stop because I think maybe something with some kind of technical difficulty on the platform. And I remember Avazbek jumped up and down, and he said something in, I guess, Russian. He said something, and it sounded super intimidating. And I was like, oh my God, like, So we're just sitting there waiting for the referee to be ready. And I'm like, oh my God, like I gotta say something. Like I can't just let him totally intimidate me like this. So I was like, I don't know what to say. And I kind of was, and he's not going to understand me anyway. So I was just sitting there and I was like, you're going to get it now, boy. And I remember just being like, did I really just say that out loud? And I was like, oh, he doesn't understand me. He doesn't speak English. And then, but that gave me a chance to ground myself. I was able to chuckle at myself about to fight this guy and kind of loosen me up a little bit. And I started the fight out great. He kicked me within, I was a little nervous going in, then he kicked me and I took him down. Perfect timing. And then after that experience really was the difference maker. He just kept taking me down over and over again. His thing for that fight was he was southpaw, so overhand left right into a shoot. And his timing and his wrestling transitions it felt like he knew exactly where my body weight was at in each position that he wanted to do. And that's pretty much how he got that win, which is very smart. If he could just wrestle his way out of it without getting hurt, that's, more power to him. And my coaches everybody was telling me that you forced that guy to wrestle you. He didn't want to, because my game plan, Corey gave me the game plan, and it was, bite your mouthpiece. Once you see him move forward to do anything, you step in 1-2. You step in cross. If he tries to get something off, you stop him in the middle with your hands. Because Coach Lee his boxing is amazing. He was a boxer first before he started Sanda when he was young. So we have a really good boxing background. So it was just like bite your teeth and box. And I landed on him a couple times, and I take pride in that fight. That's my favorite fight I've ever had, just because I forced him to wrestle, because I watched his Hong Kong fight, which was the next fight after him, and he was spinning wheel kicking that guy, or trying to, and he was using his punches and kicks a lot, and he didn't do that with me. So first round, I barely got out of 12-point gap. Like I think 4 judges had it, and they're just waiting on the 5th one, and then the time ran out. Thank God. And that. Another funny thing, this is just a comical fight in general. The first round, I wasn't listening too much because they were telling me to sit down on my punches more. I was a little too tall, so he was sliding right under and grabbing the single leg. And I sat down on the bench or whatever, on the chair, and I was just like, I fucking love this shit. Just soaking in the moment as it's happening. I've never soaked in a moment like that. I remember I fucking love this shit. And I was just looking around at the USA fans and just looking around the Coliseum and just was really soaking it in. And Coach Lee is like, great, now listen. And so they gave me the pointers. I went back out there, and his game plan was pretty much the same. Left overhand right into a shoot. And that round, he took me down a little bit too many times. And then I got the 12-point gap 40 seconds before the end of the round. So I lost that fight, and that's what got me out of the tournament.
Dang. So what would be some of the biggest lessons that you feel like you learned from that first tournament then? A lot went on.
Yeah, for sure. 1, cut weight better, and 2, get a strength and conditioning program. Against Avazbik, I think there was a lot of takedowns that I could have defended, but I was scared to defend because I didn't want to defend too hard and then, have all that blood in my muscles and then be gassed out. So there's 2 or 3 takedowns where I kind of let them take me down. I just fell so I didn't muscle anything. After that, that's one of my biggest regrets. I hate thinking about that I had to, at least in my head, think that I had to not defend a takedown just so I didn't gas out. I never wanted to feel that way again. I wanted to know I can defend as hard as I need to not get taken down and still be able to fight, which is why I got with a strength and conditioning coach and a nutritionist, because he's 2-in-1.
When did you connect with him?
He came up on an ad, actually. So I just checked him out. Whenever I reached out to him, I wasn't completely cleared. I had tore my bicep. So the tournament was in November in 2023. I tore my bicep February 2024, getting ready for another Sanda match. I severed my distal bicep tendon. So I was still recovering from that, and he told me, come back to me once you're completely able to do everything. And I did, and I've been with him ever since. So since July 2024, I've been his student.
Where's he out of?
I think he's out of Chicago.
That's very
Hmm.
cool. And so he works
Hmm.
with a number of martial artists competing in
Yeah.
various levels. And so focusing
Right.
on healthy weight cuts, training, just
Hmm.
overall nutritional aspects of preparing for some of these competitions.
Right. And not just he doesn't that's why I love Coach Rich, because he doesn't just focus on those things. He has little tabs in his app, and there's one for mental health, there's one for personal performances and stuff like that. And it's very uh all around, because he really understands if,
Holistic.
yeah, like he
Mm-hmm.
knows if you're depressed, your training's not going to be good, your diet's not going to be good. Maybe that's why you're holding on to weight. So he really hammers in mental health techniques and stuff like that.
Sure. Ultimately, I mean, stress management too. We know that
Hmm.
when our body undergoes various levels of stress, wonky things happen. And so being able
Right.
to manage that from a mental standpoint, but also physically too. And
Hmm.
then making sure that we are recovering in a healthy manner or having at
Right.
least some level of recovery. It sounds like prior you had no level of
None.
recovery, ultimately, like filling yourself with the appropriate nutrients to perform
Right.
at a high capacity.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
after that first world tournament, Jaden, was money on the line? I mean, for some of these, some of these other countries, it sounds like athletes are competing professionally and that is their year-round career, I'm assuming,
Hmm.
if they're getting paid at some of these places.
Right.
Was this one where if you won or got ranked within this world tournament, what does the winner get, I guess, besides really cool bragging rights?
That's about it. They get to go back to work on Monday. So that's what the joke we
Okay.
always make. It's like, these guys that are government funded from other countries, China, Iran, Russia. Like the guy, Avazbek from Kyrgyzstan, he flew home, and at the airport, he had the prime minister there. He had these ladies awarding him, and then he posted a reel after, and where he went to his mom's house and he was giving her money from the money he just won from beating me, because he medaled
Mm,
he beat me to medal. And
mm.
it was a crazy feeling because we're not government funded. So like I said, it's like cool. Like Bruce will say it all the time. He jokes around saying like, yeah, I got my silver medal. And then we call Coach Lee coach, just coach. And then coach is like, all right, make sure you pick up the kids on Monday for the kids class. Cause he's
Yeah.
Bruce is Coach Lee's nephew. And it's like, we get bragging rights. That's about it, I
Mm.
guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. And
Hmm.
so, do you think there'll be a point? I mean, have you seen growth? I know you've been in it less than 5 years or so, but
Hmm.
do you think it will get to a point where there will be promotions that will be bigger within the states and where, maybe ultimately amateur fights that will progress
Hmm.
into professional fights where some of these competitors will get paid like MMA fighters do?
Right. I think that's the overall plan. I mean, obviously we're really trying to promote Sanda and yeah, promote Sanda as a whole. I think they're trying to work on, having some amateur bouts and stuff, some semi-pro bouts, and I think they may have been having some trouble with the boxing commission doing those kinds of things, but yeah, overall just trying to promote it as much as we can, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to get those amateur bouts, like cards and stuff, to make it real cool and make sense. Because people, especially in America, that's what's going to catch people's eye. It feels like a lot of times they see tournament style striking and it's like, oh, that's not cool. That's just whatever. And until they see it, if you've ever been to a Sanda tournament, it's like watching a movie, especially in the lower weight classes, with the rhythm and the skills, and trying to point. It makes it look so pretty and skilled that a lot of people don't realize that, and that it's actually a super good base for MMA, but people just don't know about it. So we're just trying to promote it in any way we possibly can.
Sure. Do you know, obviously there's a gym in Lubbock, Texas.
Hmm.
So people listening that are in the area, go check it out.
Yes.
Do you know any other locations within Texas or within the states that are starting to really build up their Sanda programs?
There's a gym in Arizona I think they have dudes coming into the tournaments more consistently now and trying to learn it and really starting to love Sanda, just like
Mm-hmm.
us here in Lubbock. And then, of course, there's Ohio, where Vincent has his own school, Ming's Martial Arts, and he always produces top quality fighters, very skilled and humble fighters that come to each of the trials and nationals, and any event we can get in Sanda. It's always us and the Mings trying to push push our guys to go and compete and, spread the word and stuff.
Yeah.
And then now we have this team from Arizona going and shooting their players out there and getting some experience learning Sanda and learning how to play the game when it comes to Sanda.
Yeah. I'll be super interested to see, just because we are seeing all levels of martial arts just skyrocket, right? And so I will be interested to see. Hopefully we'll look back at this conversation and be like, man, think how times have changed, because if it continues to grow at a rate that the other arts are, it will be cool to see what 5 years will bring, 10 years will bring. Hopefully there's
Right.
not just a handful of gyms within the states. Hopefully there's one in at least every state, if not a
Yeah.
few.
Right. Yeah. That's the goal
cool.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So finished your first world competition in 2023. You have this year break. It sounds like you had a bicep injury in 2024, healed, but got connected then with a nutritionist, kind of all around mentor and coach outside of your already well-established coaches in Lubbock. Then take me into your preparation for 2025. And so preparing for the fight, which was in June or July when you did
It was
nationals.
June.
Okay.
So everything really was leading up to that because that was the trials for the next Worlds.
Right.
So really just working with Coach Rich, getting my condition top tier again. Everything that I'd lost or that kind of plummeted because of my bicep injury, we were trying to build up through the strength and conditioning program, protein and food intake, macros and stuff. And then I remember after getting back from that, just working real close with Coach Lee and Coach Bruce, Coach Corey, what's, the path to getting back to where I was, but better, obviously. Which was, I did some jiu-jitsu competitions. And then the first time competing striking again was this last March 2025 in Phoenix. I won 2 fights to win gold at that tournament. It's not a qualifying. It was just a little tournament they put on over there. So that was the first step, was just to get my feet back in competing. I was a little nervous that you got the jitters out. And then after that was just all focused on nationals here in Lubbock to get on the world team. And the camp went great. I had a lot of breakthroughs mentally getting ready for that fight. And then, I put on a very good performance. I beat one of my friends. His name is Dallas Saunders. He's from Maryland. And beat him. That was my only fight for the day. And yeah, I think I would say that my preparation for that was pretty to the book to how we thought it would go. And yeah, that's about it. Getting ready for that fight.
So you had one fight and then that was it?
I'm trying to think if I did any BJJ tournaments after that fight, but I don't think so. After that, it was just polishing my skills, getting ready for nationals.
Oh, okay. I thought you were explaining what nationals was. That was the competition leading up to nationals. And so then
Right.
Where was nationals at? Was that still in Arizona again?
No, it was in Lubbock. So
Okay.
my gym, United Martial Arts, is the national training center for Sanda. So
Okay.
everybody comes here to train with Coach Lee and Coach Bruce, Coach Corey, everybody.
How many
So-
competitions did you have or fights did you have for nationals then?
Just one. So he was,
Okay.
so Dallas was the only one in my weight class. So
Oh,
one
okay.
and done. Mhm.
Okay. And so then you won that. And so then you qualified for Worlds through that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so then that was you said in the middle of the summer. And so when
Right.
did your LCL injury happen?
So yeah, that was in the middle of summer, and then I got a week off for 4th of July. That was the next week. Right back into a camp cutting weight for Brazil. So that leads me right before my birthday, July 24th. So I got about 2-3 weeks into that camp, and then it was my last 11 seconds of my last sparring round for that day. I went for an outside hook at the wrong angle, and my partner defended kind of weird, and I just heard a big pop, and then it was a lot of pain. And then the next day was even worse. So I got it checked out, MRI, and then just decided to pull out because he was partially torn. And I didn't want to pay. That's a big trip to pay all that money for and then be confined with one of my legs. So
Sure.
I just wanted to heal.
Yeah. So how did that setback test you mentally and emotionally? Because I can imagine the roller coaster that you had winning and then ultimately qualifying for Worlds, having your birthday coming up, just feeling all the good vibes and then getting that injury very shortly after that.
Yeah. It was very hard for me emotionally and mentally. It was, went into it, a pretty bad depression and emotionally drained and thinking about what could have been and what if and well, am I being kind of a bitch right now? Should I have just fought? Should I fight? Should I push through it regardless? And having to learn to just accept what what happened and with the decision I made and stick to it. And for a while it was very hard going from, top athlete, a national champion, you know, I could probably have abs on my arms. That's how ripped I was. I was in fight shape. And then from that just to now what am I? And,
Mm.
really realizing how much I put my worth into fighting and training and everything happens for a reason, and I'm doing a lot better now, finding worth outside of fighting. That I'm not just a fighter. I'm a mentor. I'm
Mm-hmm.
smart. I'm all these other things, not just a fighter. But it put me in a rock bottom trying to get to this point. So
Yeah.
yeah, a roller coaster for sure.
Yeah. Because Worlds was in September, correct, in
hmm
Brazil. Did you
hmm
end up watching them, or is there a way to watch them internationally? Like, are they showcased?
hmm
Okay.
it's called Wushu TV.
Okay.
They live streamed them, so I got to watch them in real time and so.
Okay. Did you recognize a lot of the competitors? Like, did a lot of the same competitors that made it in 2023, were they competing again in 2025?
Yes, and more on top of that, because some people didn't get their passports or their visas passed. Some
Mm.
countries didn't get them accepted. Like Iran wasn't there, Turkey wasn't there, and Russia wasn't there, and a few others. So there's some new faces I saw, but a lot of a lot of recognizable faces and a lot of faces that I recognized just from looking up Sanda matches, doing some research and studying up on the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So, who ultimately won, I guess, in your weight class? Do you know?
60 kilograms, China, and
Okay.
I think it was China and Iran in the finals, and China won.
So, where is your headspace and training now? We're kind of getting towards the end of 2025. This episode is going to come out at the very beginning of January 2026. So,
Mm.
what kind of goals do you have or resolutions moving into the new year?
So right now I'm in a very unique spot, I would say, different than any point of my training I've ever been in. We have Junior Worlds in March. So we have 3 teenagers getting ready for that in a fight camp right now. I'm trying to give them the best advice my experience can give them. And so, I really put my personal training, and I still train every day with them, but my personal goals and training have been kind of on hold the last month and a half, just trying to get them ready for this fight mentally and emotionally and physically, which has been a very rewarding process. And, I see it in my sparring. My sparring and my sense has gotten a lot better and more crisp just by showing these kids these things and explaining it to them. Because if I'm seeing a different perspective now, coaching them and helping coach them versus just always getting coached. So now I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting coached and I'm being able to share it with these kids and having
Yeah.
to put it in ways where kids that have only been training 6 to 8 months can understand.
Yeah.
So that's helped a lot. And going
When
into
did you
2026,
when did you start coaching, Jaden? Or
pretty
helping
recently,
coach? Okay.
right? Pretty recently, I would say within the last 3 months, pretty heavily. My
That's
coaches
great.
were really trying to get me to do that, last year, but it just I couldn't click with it. And I didn't like
Mm-hmm.
coaching. They would try to get me to run class. I hated running class. As I've matured, I've gotten more confident in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's a little easier to
Well,
do
what a
that.
great, and I think what a great shift and different way of being rewarded is by giving back and still staying within the art, but coming off of this high and then a super, super low that you did and just
Mm,
recovering from an injury. It's
right.
pretty cool that you've shifted just slightly to see the joy in coaching and merging into that realm. So that's pretty cool.
hmm Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So going into 2026, focusing on the kids to start off with. What other goals do you have?
Going into 2026 is getting ready for Pan Ams now, starting to plan and how I'm going to budget my money to try to get there and stuff. And then just trying to keep this stride going from teaching these kids and giving them the experience and telling them all these things that worked for me. And then January 1st, whatever day the gym opens back up from New Year's, practicing what I preach to these kids about mental toughness, about taking care of their physical and stuff. Like I said, practicing what I'm preaching and putting it into my own journey, even better than I did this last year. And get ready for Pan Ams, which is going to be in Argentina this year in October. And then trying to take as many fights as I can, look for as many fights as I can. We're actually trying to plan our wedding around Pan Ams. So it's a Super Sanda wedding. We're going to do, right now we're planning on our honeymoon being in Argentina so I can fight at Pan Ams. So that's the goal right now.
True love right there. I was going to say, talk about again the importance of being with somebody that understands the fight game. And clearly you guys are both passionate about it. And so that's pretty great.
Yeah.
And what an experience. I think about not just what you've already experienced from traveling and competing with some of the best in the world, but knowing too, you're still so young. How old are you?
25.
25. And so I just think, man, it's crazy to imagine all the places that you're going to go. You both are going to go around the world. What a great opportunity to just see a lot of great places and be around some pretty influential people. So that's exciting.
Yes, ma'am.
Kids classes, tell me a little bit about what that's like in Lubbock. What ages do you guys accept, or how is it broken down versus what some of the adult training is like?
So we have a kids class, and then we have an adult class at 6. We accept kids that are 4 years old, but it just depends. We'll let them try out the class, and then if they're able to, listen to a point, then they'll let them sign up.
Okay.
So I think the kids class is 4 to probably about 13, or until you get too big to where you can't get much work with the kids class anymore. You have to go to the adult. So
sure,
we have kids that are 13, 14 training with the adults because they can't get any work from the little kids anymore. So
yeah, and probably great for them to
for sure
get that experience, and good for the adults to understand how to adjust their style and I guess aggression, you could say.
Yeah.
That's great. How big are the adult classes there now? I was kind of looking online and seeing through Instagram. The facility looks great. I mean, pretty large. And so I don't know how long this has been open or anything, but can you tell me a little bit about the Lubbock facility and your coaches?
Yeah. So Coach Lee came here. I know the gym opened in 2007, but I don't know exactly when Coach Lee came. We have Texas Tech here in Lubbock, so I think that he'd gotten a scholarship to go to school at Texas Tech. So he came from Taiwan. He was in the military there, fought for money, and he came here, opened up. Well, I think first he was teaching martial arts classes out of the Texas Tech Rec Center, just whenever he could, I guess, and then ended up opening up UMA in 2007. Corey came not too long after that, and then a couple years later, Bruce came from Taiwan to live with Coach Lee, and that started that. And then everybody that's came in and out throughout that time got us to this point. The gym's changed physically over the years. Stuff was moved around, mats were moved around. Really, the whole culture has always kind of stayed the same. Coach Lee has been really good about just, you're getting the same Coach Lee Sanda that you got in 2007. You're getting that now. He's kind of slowed down on the coaching a little bit. Bruce is taking over, running the classes and sharing his knowledge and passion, trying to get that out there to people of Lubbock. And, the classes are pretty good. It's kind of hard to find guys that want to fight consistently. We have a good 6 to 8, and then we have another probably 10 that, just train for fun or whatever. And then we have, in the other room, we have Corey teaching BJJ, pretty good amount there. But yeah, so
that's great.
We have a 6 o'clock Sanda class, 6 o'clock BJJ class, and they kind of mix that how they want to do it. Depending on, like, maybe you want to go do the Sanda skills class and then go roll jiu-jitsu, or go roll jiu-jitsu and then start with the Sanda class drilling and stuff. So
sure.
Yeah.
That's great. So let's kind of talk about your other passion. So people talk about technique and conditioning, strength, everything that goes into being a fighter. But as you know, and as many competitors know, there's a huge psychological component. So
Mhm.
how has the mental side of fighting changed and just evolved for you from when you started to where you are today?
Right. I would say, it's definitely evolved from, and I would say that 2023 tournament really is what was the shift. And I'm sure it's like that with everybody. Once you get enough experience or enough hard fights, something that just shifts in you to where, I remember a year before the world tournament, me and Audrey we went on a little vacation in Fort Worth, and we were walking by the convention center where we had the fights. And I remember telling her, "Oh, that's where you're going to fight. I don't know if I'm going to fight there." And she's like, "Quit saying that. You're going to be there with me. We're both going to make the team." And, I still didn't believe it. It's that self-belief wasn't as strong as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And, after that tournament really gave me a foundation to, I have to think a certain way if I want to be a certain way. And there's no point doing this and fighting. And if I don't believe that I can accomplish all the things and be all the things that I want to be. And um, so once that's evolved to just uh, always being willing to do whatever. I guess it sounds kind of cliche and cheesy, but just always being willing to do whatever it takes, whether that means in kind of brainwashing myself that I was tough. I was a very soft kid growing up. I got bullied, very shy. It was hard for me to make friends because I was so quiet and insecure about myself. I never thought of myself as tough. I never thought of myself as somebody that would go and get in the ring with another man and try to hurt him while he's trying to hurt me. I never thought I would be that person. So it was a lot of brainwashing myself to believing that I am that guy. I am the guy that's tough as shit and is willing to go to the depths of hell in a fight, in training, to, build this person, this persona, this fight persona in my head. And
Mm-hmm.
once I started brainwashing myself that I'm tough, and that bled into every part of my life, from work to work, now in school, my relationships, anything really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was an evolution that has taken 4 years, gradually, always, and sometimes it was stagnant where,
Mm-hmm.
my mental wasn't that good, but it never went back down. It always got better and better and better. And a big part of that was Coach Lee. He would talk shit a lot about the things like, well, why aren't y'all doing this? Why don't you do this? Well, I told you to do this and you still haven't done it, and this and that. And it got to a point where it's like, it's true. Like, I never really got annoyed with those things, but I did notice that I kept falling into this cycle. He's talking shit to me about the same things, and it clicked. And it was like, all you have to do is do those things. There's nothing special about what he's telling me to do. It's just what I have to do. And once that clicked, I was able to, if these guys in China are training 8 hours a day, and that's their training portion, then I looked at my schedule with the job I have, I should be able to train 5. For that camp is what I was talking about in
Mm-hmm.
2023 is show up there at 4 and I'll leave at the gym at 9:30 or 10. So that's about 5 hours. So I'm getting that work in. Coach could have told me to jump in a trash can and jump out of it 5 times because it's going to make me a better fighter, make my mental better. I would have jumped in and out of the trash can 5 times if I had to. And so I would say that shift started when it clicked that, well, everything he's telling me to do, if I just do it over time,
Yeah.
it's gonna come into fruition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and call it brainwashing, or maybe just call it growth
Right.
in various ways too, Jaden, because it
Hmm.
sounds like, you got better at positive self-talk, or at least clear self-talk and self-reflection, and ultimately believing yourself the more that you repeat those things. But then in the
Hmm.
moments of doubt, trusting those around you. And so knowing
Right.
you're not going to have whether it's motivation or strength or drive all the time. We're all
Right.
not built that way. But that
Hmm.
shows the importance of being surrounded by people that are going to call you out, or tell you how it is, or
Yep.
motivate you, or make sure you are shifting your thought process when there's doubt and uncertainty and fear and whatever it is, exhaustion, fatigue.
Mm.
And so it's really cool that you have found that within your fiance, within your coaches. I think, a lot of people should find value in that, who
Right.
you're surrounding yourself with, because like I said, we all are trying to be better, whether it's mentally, physically, professionally, but so much of that is influenced by those around us.
Mhm.
So that's great. That's really
Right.
cool.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
So how are you handling those moments of fear and pressure and the expectations that just come with competing at such a high level? Because it sounds like, one, you're trying to get a little bit of experience in some of these less, or I guess situations that are not as high stakes, going
Mhm.
into a maybe local BJJ tournament or whatever it may be, but just to get that exposure and comfort.
Right.
What else has helped you just in general manage that fear, pressure, the expectations of others? Because just going from competing year round and preparing at practice to then going to a national competition and then ultimately worlds is a big leap. So what's kind of works for you now?
I'm not scared to tell anybody, I'm not the kind of fighter that's like, are you nervous? How are you feeling? I'm scared. I'm nervous, and we had a lot of the younger kids fight in nationals in June, and I would go up to them and be like, how you feeling? You scared? You nervous? And yeah, kind of. And I'm like, it's all right. I'm scared too. And I was like, it's okay to admit that. Like, I'm terrified every single time I have to fight. But that's why now the way I handle that fear, I handle the unsureness. Every camp there's unsureness of yourself. Can I do this? Especially when you get better and better and more eyes are on you and you're supposed to win, it's a lot of pressure. I'd rather be that's why that 2023 tournament, it was so easy mentally almost in the fight, for the fight at least, because there's no expectations on me. I was
You're the
supposed to go
underdog.
out there. Yeah. Supposed to go out there and lose. So I really could just, let it hang and go out there and leave my heart out there. And so it was easy mentally. But, going into a national tournament after those fights and becoming more and more well known in the Sanda community, people go and expect you to win. People go and they want to watch your fight. They want to see a show. That was the biggest mental barrier that I was facing for these last fights was, what if I don't win? What if this guy beats me? What if I get caught and I can't come back from it? So I find a lot of comfort in just my training. So if we're doing conditioned bag rounds, I'm going to go until I can't stand anymore. I'm going to push myself to the brink of exhaustion because that's where I find my comfort. I find my comfort in doing the things that I almost know for sure that my opponent's not doing because I'm pushing myself so hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Good. What values or lessons from your own coaches do you try to pass on to the students that you're helping out with now?
Man, I feel like it's a script. I'm trying to think of things I'd tell them. It's just little things, and a lot of it's just attitude. We do a thing called 2010s. It's 20 hard seconds, 10-second break, 20 hard seconds for 6 rounds. Then they'll usually do, so that's 6 rounds of 2010s is 1 set, and then they'll usually do 6. And, it comes out in little ways of like, for me, whenever I'm doing those, after each round, I put my hands up and I walk around like I just want to fight. I walk around like I'm not tired, even though I'm dying. But, so I'll see those dudes, those kids, they're doing that now for their camp. And sometimes they'll walk around in between during that 10-second break. But that walking around is just because we have the coaches yelling at you and we have the anxiety in your head of, oh, this is tiring, it sucks, I can't feel my legs or whatever. So they'll walk around out of anxiety. But it makes it so much easier if you stand in front of the bag and you breathe for that 10 seconds so you can do it again. But it's hard to stay still when you have all this shit going on the outside. So I tell them, stay in front of your bag. And some of them will lean on their bag in between rounds. Why are you showing weakness? And I'm pretty hard on them, So, but now they know, when Jayden's around, I better not lean on the bag in between my rounds because it shows weakness in any way. Like there's a kid named Jackson, and he's a really good kid, and he's been really working on that part, and he's gotten so much better. And then it just progresses. So like he had a bad round for one round a couple weeks ago, a sparring round, and he got done. He's shaking his head. I had to get on to him like, quit shaking your head and hide that, and then just go fix it. Instead of shaking your head, because that shows weakness. If anybody's seeing that, you're unsure of yourself. If I'm seeing my opponent walk off into his corner and he's shaking his head, I'm gonna eat you. because
Mm-hmm.
I smell the blood, you know? So I'm trying
Right.
to it's really just attitude and fake and tricking yourself into being somebody that you never thought you could be, or tricking yourself into a mindset that you've never had before, because that's what worked for me. And,
Mm-hmm.
there's things in martial arts that work for some people and don't work for others. I think this is universal advice that it helps anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I really try to preach to them.
Yeah.
Because that's what was passed down to me.
Yeah. And so important for kids or adults too is to figure out in those moments of uncertainty or frustration, fatigue, how to
Hmm.
channel that, right? Is you
Right.
still might feel that. That's maybe not going to go away right away, but how are you going to channel that energy and
Yeah.
portray that, which is such an important skill to have as you get out into the real world.
Yeah.
So when we are having a bad day or frustrated or fatigued, kind of going through the day-to-day grind, you have to channel it and present yourself in a certain way. And so
Right.
what an important place for these kids to learn that, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So very cool. So that is a perfect segue into talking about what you kind of ventured into from an educational standpoint. So you were
Hmm.
saying that you got inspired to return back to school to become a middle school counselor. Have you started
Hmm.
this process?
Yes, I have. I went back to school last semester, spring 2025, and it was just like, why am I doing this? I'm having to work this job and do all this school, and I don't even know what I want to do. And nothing interests me. Only am interested in fighting. There's not a job I could have thought of that really just made me really want to do something. So originally, I was just trying to find the fast track to give me a degree,
Mm,
and so I can get a good job. Because my big thing is, I want kids. I really want kids. That's my biggest goal in my life, is to have kids. But I can't do that with the jobs I was working, because I put my whole life on hold for Sanda when I was 20. I
mm-hmm.
could have gone back to school, but I stopped going to school just to see where this would take me, which I don't
Sure.
regret. But it left me with no skill, or not skills, but it left me with no desire for anything else. I originally was trying to do last semester physical training assistant. It paid decent. It was only a 2-year program. I could hopefully get in and out. And Coach Corey would always tell me, well, if you're going to go for 2 years, you might as well just go for 4 for something that you really want to do, because he kind of did it the same way I did, put his life on hold, was working shit jobs to train. And he went back at, I think he said 34. He went back to school and got his master's, and now he's working a job at tech in the library and stuff. And so he was preaching to me from the start, just go get it. If you really want to train, go to school, get a job that isn't physical labor, and gives you an opportunity to train to the best ability.
Mm,
And I didn't know what that was, like I said. And then all of a sudden, these 4 or 5 16-year-old kids come and start training, and they start getting real into Sanda, and they really like. I've never seen somebody love Sanda the way I did. Me and my coaches, sometimes it feels like we're searching for that, because it's like everybody wants to do MMA. Everybody wants to do the cool things that make them look cool, or they want to be on TV. And I'm not knocking that by any
mm-hmm.
means. If that's your goal and that's your journey, that's your journey, and there's pride in that. But these kids really took to Sanda, and I got really close to them. Me personally, I didn't have a father, and some of these kids are the same. So we connected instantly on that. And then just seeing how tough they are and seeing them evolve over this time through the advice that I was giving them made me, fall in love with that process of helping these kids. And, me growing up as an unconfident kid and seeing these kids really look at me and take in what I'm saying. And then, they'll text me and ask me questions, or I see that they're really trying to work these things, really inspired me to changed my major to psychology, and then eventually have the goal of being a middle school counselor or high school counselor, whatever I
Mm-hmm.
can get. And, helping these kids grow by relating to them, getting on their level. And because I've been in a spot where everybody's story is different, but I've been in a spot where I think a lot of my unconfidence was because I didn't have a dad. I didn't have a father figure. I had my grandpa, but it was a little different. He's super old school. and he's my, I would say my grandpa is my father figure. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he taught me how to be a man. He provided for me. He gave me the best foundation to how to be a man. But like I said, he's super old school. So how I can go up to my mom, how I can go to my mom and have certain conversations with her, I can't do that with my grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
And you need that father figure in your life that you can go and get on that level that I can do with my mom. And I just never had that. And I think that brought unconfidence in me. And seeing these kids engage with me in this way just made me feel something and taught me something about myself that I had never felt before.
Mm-hmm.
Inspired me to, you know, like I tell my fiance all the time, I don't want to be at the school with, you know, all the kids are good because their parents are rich and they have everything. They have everything they need. I want to be at the worst school in Lubbock, and I want to work with the kid that's like, fuck you, Mr. Saucedo. You don't know shit about me. I do, but it'll take, I want to be, I want to be the guy in their lives that's like, cool, I'll be back tomorrow to help you out. And
Mm-hmm.
then tomorrow, if it's the same thing, I'll be back the next day and the next
Right.
day until I can break down these barriers because I feel like I have a decent experience on how to deal with it. And if I can
Mm-hmm.
pass that on, that means the world to me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And the power of just consistency. That's amazing. Very inspiring, Jaden.
Thank
And
you.
those few years of school, they're going to fly by. And it
Yeah.
sounds like they're going to be so worth it because the passion is radiating off of you. So you're going to make a huge impact in this world. And that's a very niche role that you're going
Mhm.
into. Teenagers in general can be terrifying to some individuals, even thinking about working with them in
Yeah.
any way, shape, or manner. And so the fact that you have a passion for it, I have
Hmm.
no doubt that you're going to make an impact whatever route or avenue comes your way. So that's
Thank you.
very inspiring. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And you're already, it sounds like you're already doing that. And being able to instill confidence in these kids and get that practice through the gym, which is great.
Yes.
To give them some level of avenue to build that confidence and see the importance of consistency from
Right.
others, but also in themselves, right? And
Hmm.
so
Exactly.
that's great. Very good. Well, just looking back at your journey as an athlete, now as a coach, soon to be counselor, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned about yourself over the last handful of years?
Man, there's so many. I'm trying to pick one. And I think it is if I'm willing to do it, if I have the balls to not just fight, but if I have the balls to go to the counselor's office, what classes do I need to do this? Okay. And they give me my list of classes to set myself up for the next year or whatever. That all starts with having the willingness to do it. Just like I had the willingness to step in the ring. I fought, I think, 11 times. So 11 times I felt the feeling of, well, no going back now, you know,
Mm,
once that bell's about to ring. And it's really like that in life, you know, in each time, each of those 11 times, even the worst ass kickings I've gotten, I'd never regretted that. I never regretted
mm,
doing it. And, you know, translating that to my life is just always be willing to and never let fear guide you.
mm,
Go into the unknown and jump headfirst into it because you don't know what's gonna happen. Because I never thought I would be in this stage of my life to where, you know, I'm this fighter guy that's fighting guys from Kyrgyzstan, Russia, and Romania, or going to school, working full time on top of that, and doing all these things and evolving into the person I've evolved into is just stemming from doing it,
mm-hmm.
being willing to.
Yeah. And that leads into my next question, which it sounds like you pretty much answered it, but if you have anything else to add on. So for anyone listening who's maybe struggling with setbacks or self-doubt, what message would you want to leave them with? And it sounds like having the willingness to just do it and maybe take that first step. Anything else
Hmm.
that you might have as far as advice for those individuals?
I tell these dudes that uh, by any means, they're Coach Lee's and Coach Bruce's guys. They're not my guys. I'm not their coach. I just help where I can, you know. I'm a
Yeah.
leader in the gym, so I just wanted to clarify that. But I tell these guys all the time, you know, be real with yourself. Anytime you feel this unsureness, you feel this doubt, you feel any kind of way, because like you said, there's a psychological aspect to fighting, and a lot of it is psychological. Be so self-aware and be so honest with yourself, even if it hurts. You know, like a lot of the times I'll ask him, well, were you being a bitch today? And I'll make him answer, well, yeah, I could have done this or I could have done that and stuff like that. And that's totally fine. We've all had that bitch come out. If somebody has been training for years and they say they've never had the bitch come out of them, then they're lying. Everybody has. We're all human. And if you can be totally raw with yourself to the point to where it cringes you out, because maybe in whatever aspect, it could be homework. Maybe I didn't do the homework. I saw the homework there and I just decided not to do it. Instead of making an excuse for that, I should have done it. Or could I have pushed myself harder on those rounds? Yeah, I could have. Was I being a bitch? Yeah, I was being a bitch. So other than being willing to do it, you have to be willing to be brutally honest with yourself to the point where it's painful, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like real self-reflection instead of making up excuses or not maybe being completely honest or upfront, I guess, with yourself.
Right.
I love that.
Or lying to yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Awesome, Jayden. Well, I finish every episode with the same 2 questions. So first question is, what's something you wish didn't have as much of a grip on you in your life?
Probably anxiety. You know, I was an anxious kid, anxious and depressed kid, turned into anxious and depressed adult. And I actively work on it. I go to therapy each week and you know, it's hard, kind of trying to base your life around your anxiety. Am I going to be anxious today? I got to make sure I'm above water all day. And that's gotten easier, especially more as I've been maturing and, you know, training has helped with that too. And recently these kids have been helping with that because I know after if I have a bad day, if I'm really anxious, I can go to the gym that night and spread my knowledge and see these kids evolve from awkward, unconfident teenagers to awkward, but more confident teenagers. And then hopefully awkward, confident young men, and then just confident men, confident husbands, confident just men in general, and becoming the men that I see that they can become. And, you know, I really do wish on the outside in my own personal life that I didn't have to deal with that anxiety and depression, but it's made me who I am.
Yeah. And what is something you wish you had more of a grip on in your life?
More of a grip. I guess that would be, let me try to think. Time management. Sometimes it feels like my ass can't catch up to my head. Sometimes I'm over here and I need to be over here. And then sometimes I don't have to be in all these places. Sometimes I just need to relax and, you know, just go with the flow. So I guess it's just that.
Yeah, very good. Awesome, Jayden. Well, from stranger to I feel like I know so much about you now. It was a joy, truly, having you on the show. I appreciate you reaching out. This was amazing, and I think is really going to resonate with so many people that listen or watch. And so I wish you all the best. It sounds like you are just at the start of your journey, even though you've experienced and competed at such high levels. I can't wait. I'll be following along, and I can't wait to see what the next few years bring for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah. So for people that want to also follow along, they can do so on Instagram at saucedo.60kg on Instagram, or they can connect with you on Facebook at Jaden Saucedo. Or if you guys are interested in learning more about United Martial Arts in Lubbock, Texas, I'll also link their gym Instagram below. I'm assuming they have a website, so I'll look that up too and link it. But they are at UMA_Lubbock on Instagram. Anything else the people need to know, Jayden?
I think that's it. I think you took the words out of my mouth. So that's
awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it so much. And like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. You've just been a light today. I think you're doing great things and keep up the good work. And again, I think you're going to make a big impact within the martial arts community, but also for these young kids as you pursue counseling. I'm excited to see the lives that you change. So keep doing the good work.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Ma'am.
Take care.
You do the same.
Thanks for listening to The Grip. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow along on Instagram at The Grip Pod to stay up to date on new episodes. That way you can send over a DM if you've got a question you'd like to hear answered on our roll call series. Now remember, stay sharp, be grounded, and never lose your grip. See you next time.